Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Breakout EDU on-air Google Hangout live thing that we do. This is our community call, and we are going to be talking about all sorts of different things. So I created a document for the agenda, as well as an opportunity for you guys to post questions and things like that. The document is actually linked in our Facebook group, posted there at the top. I pinned it to the top, but I'll also create what they call a shout key link, so you guys can see it there as well. Actually, I don't know if I'll do that because then it will expire. We'll do it. What's a little failure every once in a while? All right, I'm going to put it here. Let's try it out. Shouting it out. So there's this awesome tool called Shout Key where you can take any link that you have, and if you want to send it to everybody quickly, you can post it in there, and it creates a short link, something that's as a real word, so it'd be shoutkey.com something, but I actually can't seem to make it work right now, so we'll just dive into the Hangout. So the first thing we'll do is updates. I know many of you saw the newsletter, so thank you so much for receiving those. Everybody who's filled out the beta form is on the list, so if you didn't get one, make sure you check your spam folder or wherever my email ended up. It should have came from James at breakoutedu.com, and that's where I have all the updates and things like password information and stuff. So I removed the password information before I posted it to the blog because, again, we password protect the game to prevent players from looking up solutions while they play. That's the only reason. There's no like paid membership or anything like that. The password is the same for all the games, and we'll explore in the future like adjusting them every once in a while because I'm sure, as you guys know, players out there be like, oh, I figured it out because I signed up as a student to be a beta tester, and James sent me the password. So we'll figure that out as things go. So yeah, that's the first update. The second update that's pretty cool is Mark Hammonds, the gentleman who has personally built all of the boxes here in the U.S. up to this point, and I'm excited to share that. There's a student project that we'll get to announce pretty soon for some upcoming boxes, but he is joining us full time. So we'll now be a team of 2 starting on Monday. So I'm really excited about that and building that up. The other thing is there is now more beta games in the Breakout EDU game directory than there is non-beta games. That's because the community has been doing an amazing job at building and sharing their games. I know a lot of you have been sharing it to Facebook before you submit it, but once you get submitted, I found some time this week to get them all posted. And tonight we're going to be talking about how to get those reviewed because I don't know how we want to do that yet. So I'd love to kind of hear thoughts and you know, and from this group. Again, if you are just watching the community, this Hangout online, which I see many of you are, we can try to pull you into the chat. Just feel free to add your email to the community doc that we're all working from, which is linked again in the Facebook group. I think that's it for the big updates. What I wanted to do is take just 5 minutes, and this can transition into a discussion as well, and I see there's some questions, at least one question in the doc below, so we'll address that in a minute. And share kind of the roadmap, kind of what my thinking is and what we're trying to do, and I'd love to kind of hear what you guys think the roadmap should be, because one of the things from the very beginning, so down to like the first week in that hotel room brainstorming with Michael about how can we do this gaming thing, I wanted to build this project in the open. So this is not my first venture. Oops, Scott's going to join us. Let me pull you in there, Scott. And I wanted to try to figure out, what does it mean to build in the open, so that there's a template for others that want to come along and build something. So with that said, I'll kind of go into my roadmap, and then here pause for some thoughts or reflections. And you can post the questions in the chat room or the document box, or you can join us in the doc here. So. All right, roadmap. Let's look at the big brush strokes. It's now October, as many of you know. We've outsold. We've sold, I think it's like 550 kits around the U.S., and I know many of you have put together your own as well. So as a platform, we estimate there being about 1,200 breakout kits spread out all over the U.S. and Canada. And we're starting to see a few pop up internationally, and we'll talk about internationally specifically in a little bit. So the first big benchmark is January. So as you know, we're back ordered quite a bit. So it takes 2 or 3 weeks for Mark to build the boxes and get them out, just because of the sheer number, the volume. So I'm going to be driving down to his house in November to catch us up when I get back. But again, it's not sustainable. So we're looking at how can we get a kit mass produced. So trying to find a manufacturer that will produce it so that we can just have it be Amazon Prime and you go and you buy that box. That said, to preserve the kind of the fun nature of the wooden box, we're going to move wooden box production, as you currently see it, from us to schools, hopefully, and having the profits from those schools, those kit sales, get to benefit the school programs. Again, so the 3 people that added their email address, I tried to add you to this chat. So if you're having trouble, let me see if I can do it one more time here. So there's got an invitation right here, and then Bailey, let me send you one right here. And if you don't see it, check there you go, popping on in. There we go. All right. So that said, and the target date to be able to ship those, larger quantity boxes is January 1. So that's what we're aiming for, but maybe a little after. That's strategic because we also are limited to the U.S. and Canada currently, and so we're hoping that'll help us solve some of the international stuff that I'll talk about in a bit. The next big item on our roadmap is we're looking at maybe doing a Kickstarter campaign in February. Now, in the spirit of Kickstarter, it's not going to be just for the boxes as you see them. We're looking to potentially, and this is what I'd love to discuss with you guys, exploring the idea of expansion kits. So keeping the kit as it is the core kit and all the games that work with it, but saying, like, what if there was a small cube that was a computer science expansion kit? And that small cube wooden box came with a Wi-Fi lock, and all of the games associated with that could be built in with coding challenges. So the students, rather than just trying to find a random 4-digit number, will have to potentially code it open, as it's a part of the game. So they're breaking into the CIA, and they have to, which we probably shouldn't encourage students to do. So we'll come up with a better theme. But then they code open the lock or something like that. So exploring things like what can't we currently build with our limitations, and if we did a Kickstarter, dreaming up some really cool stuff that we could build. So that's the February, and then the next kind of big item on the roadmap is saying, okay, like I was talking to a friend of mine here in the Bay Area, and she bought a kit to run at her son's birthday party, and she's like, why aren't there these things for games for the home? And I know that many of you have also brought up that same thing, and so saying, like, let's make sure our focus is where it should be, but then looking at potentially next October, like a year from now, to have maybe a line of home games that work with the same stuff, but really wanting to get too carried away. So that's how you see everything really spread out over the next year from now. So that's the roadmap, and then finally, the last agenda item before we go into discussion is the international kits. Hoping to announce international pre-orders very, very soon. This poor lady, I don't know her name, maybe she's on the call, reached out and ordered a kit from Germany. We put it together, and it cost us $189 to ship it to her. But she was determined, and so we were trying to solve that problem and saying, okay, what does it mean to ship around the various continents? Because we'll be doing a lot of work in Europe this come March. So that's the update. We're looking to do pre-orders on those kits soon. But more exciting is Christian, one of our community members in Spain, actually went through and found the exact things available in the Spanish Amazon store. And so we created a breakoutedu.com/Spain, where it has all the Amazon links there for the people in Spain that want to put together an open source. And then we're hoping those links work in other countries, but we haven't tested it yet for other European countries. So yeah, let's quickly take a moment to introduce the folks that are on the call with me, and then we'll dive into our 3 discussion items. And I want to add a fourth because I know, Scott, you ran a unconference just 2 days ago, and because of a passport issue, I couldn't make it. But I want to hear how it went. So let's go left to right. We have Ari, who is driving home from work. So if you can safely introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
This is convenient. I'm at a stoplight.
Oh, safely.
So yeah. I'm Ari Llewellyn, and I'm a staff development specialist for Riverside Unified School District. And let's see, my focus is educational technology, but I work for innovation and learner engagement. So
$189 to ship it to her.
Yeah.
There we go.
Hello?
Yeah, I was hearing myself from 30 seconds ago. I don't know where that was coming from.
I was like, I saw that. Okay. I was like, is that me? But yeah, so innovation, learner engagement, that's our big thing. And right now we're hosting Breakout EDU events for our administrators. And if an admin comes and participates in our game, we will go host a game at their site for their leadership team. And then we're also holding a lot.
So we were trying to solve that problem and saying, Kathleen, it's you who's bringing that over. Sorry, I'm going to mute you really quick. Sorry about that. All right, go ahead and finish up.
Oh yeah, so we're holding a lot of breakout EDUs in Riverside for a couple of different purposes for either admin or staff, and people are super excited about it. And I think we just sold 4 more kits for you yesterday afternoon.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you so much. It sounds like you guys are doing awesome stuff down there, and a friend as well. So it's cool to have you involved in this project. Bailey, love to hear about what you're up to. Introduce yourself to the group. And you're on mute right now, so you have to unmute first.
Hi, everyone. I teach up in Alberta, and I'm excited to bring this to you because we teach in a really small school here, about 120 kids. And yeah, I haven't done an official one with my kids yet, but I'm looking to do one on Friday for our big Halloween celebration.
Are you going to be playing the game that Patty designed, or are you putting one together on your own?
I think we're going to do Candy Caper. Is that the one?
Yeah, that's a great one. So no, that one's a game that Kern designed. I know that. Well, and Patty, who'll introduce herself for a second, also designed a Halloween-themed one. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Fantastic, Daniel. Daniel's the guy who built that amazing box that's all laser engraved and stuff. That so go ahead and introduce yourself to the group, Daniel.
Hi, I'm Daniel Key, Titles Director of Instructional Design in the middle of nowhere, Panhandle, Texas. The town that I'm at is actually Tulia, Texas. It's about halfway between Amarillo and Lubbock, if anyone's familiar with where that is on the map. I've run 2 breakout sessions. They've both been huge successes. Did it with the same group, actually, a group of first-year teachers that I have to get them excited about the non-traditional ways of teaching. And game-based learning, and they're all excited about it, and many of them have already put interest into having their own boxes, creating their own kits, and getting started with it. So it's been really exciting to see how it's spread.
Do you have your box handy to show what you put together?
I don't. It's at the office.
I'll try to dig up. If you could share your screen and show a picture of it, it's pretty amazing. But I want to quickly introduce Patty. Patty was definitely one of the most active members in the community and is going wild with designing games. So, Patty, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you're up to.
I'll mute myself. I'm Patty. How are you? I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. For those that know, we show our hand. We're over here in the state of Michigan. I teach in the computer lab, preschool through 8th grade in the morning, 2nd grade in the afternoon. I've run games with the 2nd graders. I did the Wolf's Den with 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and then Friday I'm going to try the Halloween game with 1st through 5th. So it's been really fun, and I'm hoping to bring the breakout and just keep bringing games in. It's great fun.
So awesome. Scott is the escape room mastermind up in Canada, who just had an unconference.
That's right. So yes, I'm Scott Nicholson, professor at Wilfrid Laurier University, professor of game design, and I'm studying escape rooms as my primary research area. And on Monday, we held the world's first escape room unconference, where we had 60 people come in from around the world. And the way an unconference works is in the first hour, you generate the topics. You then spend the rest of the day exploring the topics that you generated. So we had everything. A session in the first session was, have you been sued yet for letting kids into your room? Because this concern of what happens when you bring kids into an environment. And in some North American rooms, they allow multiple groups to come together. So what happens if you have a family with kids coming together with other adults, and what sort of liability is the escape room taking on in putting these groups together in a locked room, and what's going on with that? Some interesting things that we haven't yet had lawsuits around, but I could see it happening. We had discussions about the future of escape rooms, whether they're going to head more into the haunt industry, because a number of haunted house conventions, haunt cons, are actually starting to run escape room tracks. And so, but there's also the path of like the theme park industry, and is it going to be something that's sucked into like family fun centers, and which direction is it going to go, or both? And we want to make sure and be in that discussion. We had discussions about the integration of narrative into games. How do you better integrate a story into the puzzle, so it's not just a series of puzzles, but it actually has a story going on. It talks about electronics. And again, looking at the haunt industry, there's been some discussion about using Arduinos, which are little circuit boards that you can program in devices that say if they do this, then they do that. But they're kind of flaky. And people who were there at the Escape Room Unconference from the haunt industry introduced us to something called a Boo Box. And what the Boo Box is, it's a little solid-state black box that has screws for input and screws for output. And it actually works much more reliably than an Arduino. So some excitement came out of that. The biggest thing that happened during the end of the day is that we had discussed having a fully blown 3-day escape room conference. It's looking like that'll happen in Niagara Falls, Canada, because that's easier for American visitors to get to, but doesn't have the visa problems that the US does for folks coming from Europe. But that's what we're looking at Niagara Falls in the off-season. The other stuff I'm doing with Breakout EDU is I'm developing a Breakout EDU game around Canadian Parliament, because I wanted to learn about it. And so for our open house for our game lab on November 20th, I'll have it there, and we'll be advertising our Breakout EDU game jam that we're going to have in January, where we're going to inspire people to make Breakout EDU games in the course of a weekend.
And let us know, and obviously post it in the chat, but we'd love to include it in the newsletter to promote the game jam for. We have a lot of folks up in Canada, and obviously some Americans who are just south of you would love to make the trip up. So.
Well, I have an idea. Let me throw this idea out here.
Okay.
If we're going to do this in a weekend in January, maybe what we do is inspire sites around the world to do Breakout EDU game jams on the same weekend. That
yeah, I like that.
We push it out there. We sort of everyone's working on it in their own area. We provide some guidelines. There's already some global game jams that are going on that actually happens in late January. But I thought, you know, if I'm putting together all this and I'm giving a little talk, getting people going, I could just stream that talk so that other local sites that wanted to start it at 9 a.m. Eastern time could either record the talk and play it at their own time or something like that. I guess I'd want to feel if there's going to be enough other people that would say, yeah, we're going to do that. The game jam, they usually run Saturday. You start on Saturday morning. You finish by Sunday evening, and you're given a challenge. And so it's a weekend type thing. And so ours is open to the community. Anyone can show up. If this is something you think there's interest in, I could push it out at the Facebook group now, see if there's other sites. And if there's enough sites, make it something way bigger than just us.
I'm actually pulling up my travel doc right now to see what January looks like for me, because I would love to run one at my former school here in the Bay Area. That sounds like a lot of fun, and also would cut down my personal travel costs too, and bring in the local teachers, because there's a lot of Breakout users, and I don't mean that in like a bad like drug way. They're like fun Breakout kit players here in the Bay Area. So that's a great idea, Scott, and let's go ahead and throw it out to the community and see.
Okay, I'll post that proposal and see if there's, and even if it's only 5 or 10 sites that say, yeah, we'll do it, that's a good test to see how this all works. You could record a small video intro. I could record a video intro. When we put those things together, push it out there, get people to do their games. They upload their stuff at the end, and everyone has a site where they're exploring this concept.
I love it. That sounds great. Wow. Now I'm geeking out again. So I gotta, all right. So I see down here Stacy. Stacy, go ahead and introduce yourself to the team here.
Hi everybody, I'm Stacy. I'm also from Michigan, right here. I'm a suburb of Grand Rapids. I'm a K through 6th grade teacher. I teach technology, and I'm currently doing STEM coaching. So I came across your Breakout, and I'm loving it. I've done it with my family, and then I have done one other program, but my coaching is voluntary. So the one thing I'm using it for is I put all the locks on the box, and I put one clue in my teacher's lounge, and everybody's signed up for me now. So I'm using it to hook people to use my services. So that's what I'm doing with it.
It's a funny way. I know that Scott actually had a very similar way that he started his class this last semester, where they arrived at class the first day, and instead of finding a professor, they found a clue.
Oh, cool.
Had to go figure out where he was on campus. So I love that idea of like getting out of the classroom.
Yeah, I walked in and there was 5 women trying to unlock my box. So I was pretty excited about it. So it was good.
So fun. All right, so it's I know Kim was on the call for a second. Oh, here we go. There's Daniel's kit. I clicked on it to show you if you can't see it. Totally done by himself. It's awesome. I think it's better than anything that we've built. Just embarrassing to say that. I mean, it's not like, no offense if Mark is on the call. Like, what you build is amazing. I'm just saying, like, the etching on the top is pretty awesome. All right, so the first item of discussion, something that came up in the Facebook group, was the directional lock. So one of the issues of scale is a fail rate, and the directional locks, I'm guessing are around 20% or more fail rate as far as the experience. And as you guys know, these are locks made by real companies like Master and Brink, and the Master makes the directional lock, or the speed dial lock as they may call it. And it's really frustrating to have the experiences where you can't get it back open. And as we grow this project, it's good for us to talk about, do we want to find a different lock to kind of fill that void? I know some of you are very passionate about the directional lock. I personally love it. I was being a history teacher, but I'd love to kind of put it to you guys, and then maybe in a couple weeks or next week we'll do a vote and figure it out, and then go from there. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I will share. I've used the directional lock with the second graders, with the third and the fourth, and as long as I read the directions and set the lock correctly, they can usually open it. A couple groups I've had to remind to squeeze the top twice, but as long as the combination is set correctly, we can usually get it open. The problems usually existed with me and my not reading the directions setting it. And I love it because of the coding, the connection to coding, the directions, even greater than, less than. We used it for math. They had to go greater than, less than were the clues.
And Kim just joined us. So Kim is actually, and she's talking to somebody in her classroom because she's in Sydney right now, and she's been pioneering Breakout down there. So quickly, Kim, introduce yourself, and if we've been talking about the directional lock.
Awesome. Okay. Hi, I'm Kim. I'm from Sydney. The bell for recess has just gone, so I'm looking out. So I've got kids. Can we come back upstairs? So just later. But yeah, so we've been doing it down under, and the teachers are absolutely loving it. If you've been talking about the directional lock, I've neglected to tell James, and I guess I'll say it now, even though we're on Hangout on air. The first time, so James had to send us 2 locks from the States because we can't find them anywhere here in Australia. James sent us 2 locks, and as soon as we got one, I broke it.
So that's exactly the issue that we're talking about. No. So we're trying to think, we want to come up with a replacement system, but permanent lock. I mean.
And so every time that we have used, we've played, I think, 3 games. That's 3 games down here. And every time we use the directional lock, like, we're super scared that we're going to reset it wrong because we've only got 1.
There's 1 in country.
There's 1 in the country. There's 2, but 1's broken.
Thanks for the feedback. Anybody else have comments or questions on the thoughts on the directional lock?
I've had difficulties with resetting it. After you reset it, you push it in to lock it, and I pull it back out, and it just constantly comes undone. It doesn't snag.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it does that. You change it to another combination, lock it, it does the same thing, and eventually it grabs. That to me was really annoying, because if I was running a game and it wasn't set and they went over there and pulled it and it's unlocked, they didn't get that clue or get that part. So that'd be frustrating. And then, of course, also you can't reset it if you screw up the combination. It's a lost lock. So, yeah, it's troubling for sure.
And one of the things that we think would be valuable in doing a Kickstarter would be the opportunity to potentially design our own locks. I don't know what that looks like or how that would work, but being able to be like, hey, like we want a lock to do this, and this is the reason why we'd run an event like that, or run a Kickstarter like that. Any other comments on the directional lock? All right, so I know there's a lot of discussion going on in the Facebook group on it. So I think what we'll do is we'll put it out there, maybe in a vote or something like that. I don't know. This isn't like Survivor or anything, and we'll vote the lock off the island. But we will figure out what's best, and if we decide to switch to an alternative lock, we will work with the game designers to design an equivalent puzzle that works with a different lock. So maybe it could be an optional lock that many people employ, because there are some use cases where a clue, like a compass clue or something like that, may be best with a lock like that. So I don't know. That's what we will try to do. Number 3 here is the game review process. So as you guys know, we have 5 or 6 or 7 games that I'm calling in beta games that I've posted to the directory. Those games are straight from the game designer's mouth, or pen, if you will. And now we have to figure out how do we want to get them reviewed. So there's about 60 of you who have signed up to be reviewers. But to be honest with you, I don't know how the review process would work. So I'll share a couple ideas that I have, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts. So one, I want to kind of build in some incentive program, like the game design one that we have out there, which I should revisit here in a second, around just encouraging people to go in and give meaningful feedback, because I recognize it's a lot of your time to do that. 2, so we'll be developing some sort of form that allows you to give feedback saying this has too many external items, it would cost the teacher too much money to play, versus like, a specific line item feedback saying like, hey, this was unclear, or this didn't work, things like that. But as far as a process, I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on how do you want to do it. And I think your guys' experience with reviewing, assignments for students might come in handy to think about how we could do that. This is my teacher wait time.
So is there a rubric that has been created to evaluate these?
Yeah, not yet, and that's kind of what I'm wanting to hear from, is like, what does that look like? So if we developed a rubric, are we saying a game needs to get 3 people voting it, 3 out of 5 or better in order for it to pass, or are we looking for this role to be more of like working with the designer himself or herself to make it better?
Well, and what does 3 out of 5 mean? I mean,
exactly.
That's, we have this problem with reviewitis in that most people review stuff at 4 out of 5. That's the sad. That's why I would even avoid the X out of 5 model, because people get stuck in that. But with a rubric where there's different choices for the major categories of what you're looking at as a reviewer, because many people don't know what to look at. So what are the major categories, and then how do you describe each one of those? That might be a useful way to tackle this.
So maybe narrative and complexity or something like that, or yeah, that's some good feedback.
I think that you might actually be better to not do it so in depth, and maybe do like a Google form with a scale, and just for each line item have them scale the easiness, the authenticity of the content and stuff like that. I just think that if you did it a little bit, I don't know, if you didn't make it too complex, you'd have more feedback that's really easy to just quick look at, and that way, and then maybe at the end have a section for clarification or comments or something like that.
Yeah, because I know that go ahead.
I agree with Stacy, and I think that I'm finding, like in our Facebook conversations and stuff, that a lot of people are tweaking the games to their own liking. So maybe not necessarily like how the clues are set up specifically, but how you're able to utilize it rather than well, the whole game experience is important, but also being able to customize it is an important aspect as well.
So then maybe like having a, I'm wondering if there's a two-part process. So the first part is, just having somebody from the game master group say, like, I'm going to go through and review this game. And so it's not going to be a public review. They're just going to go through it and provide feedback directly to the game designer. And we can have an internal rubric that we use for that, but it's an internal process. Like I don't know how Apple reviews apps before they go out, but I'm sure there's a very simple process for that. Then two, trying to figure out what is the best way of providing a space for people to talk about the games. We do have the community, and then I think it was Patty Duncan who suggested that we add an image for each game in a folder and in a photo album on the Facebook, and people could comment. But eventually, I want to build in some sort of thing on the game itself, right? So you click on Dr. Johnson at the bottom, you can see the comments, right? So adding a comment field on that game, and that's something I could probably go in and turn on tomorrow. I just don't know how to do that yet. So thinking about that is part of a two-step process. I don't know. What else do you guys think?
What website are you using to host the actual game stuff? Because I think the connection between the Facebook and your site, you might be better off having it more, I don't know, streamlined, so you're not constantly going back and forth and back and forth. So maybe have a place where you can actually do it on your site instead of on Facebook.
That's a good point. Yeah, so we use Squarespace to host it all. So being able to say like all comments for games happen on the game itself, and then leaving our community space open for just people in the community to chat. So Ari made it home safely. Congratulations. We're thankful. Let's not answer Hangouts while driving again, even though I'm guilty of it myself sometimes. So any other thoughts? That's a really good one. Okay, so let's then, I'll definitely take it all into consideration and then post kind of the first crack at it to the group on the Facebook, and then we could provide some feedback or discussion there. All right, the final discussion item, larger games, and then I'll go down to the comments and questions that you guys have posted, and there's 5 in there right now, 6 in there, and the 7th is coming in, so we got to go. So the larger games, so that was one of the things that Scott and I talked about early on. We're thinking about, if this is to scale, how can you design a game with one box for 30 people? So that's, going to be part of the premise for whatever jams going forward, I'm sure. But what I'm going to do is take the first crack at pulling together a small team to design a game that could be played with 30 teachers. So we're doing a call on a hangout on Friday to begin that process. So if you're super geeky about that idea, you can email me personally and I'll add you to that invite. I think it's Friday morning, so I don't know if you're all available. I already have a small group pulled together, but just let me share the time just in case, so you don't have to email if you don't know. My computer's having a heart attack, by the way, right now, so if it dies, I'm sorry, because I can't even click forward to Friday. All right, there we go. Yeah, so the meeting is going to be at 9 a.m. on Friday Pacific time. So, yeah, so I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on this challenge that remains of 30 people. So I know some of you have done it with whole groups at this point, though. So I'd kind of love to hear your thoughts before I, start my process of designing a first game, and I'm sure many of you are doing the same.
I would love to do it with more people to design those bigger games, because we find that so I've just had students come in, just go and do your thing. Sorry. I open up my classrooms at recess and lunch. No.
Are you going to get fired because of your breakout EDU on the job here?
No. Why would you say that? No, we found that obviously you want to involve as many people as you can with the games. And when we were running games in the GAVE summits and stuff, we did find that was one thing that the teachers would pull out straight away. How do you do it with a whole class? And so that is something that I would like to eventually, if we could all nut out somehow, because I've had a thought, and I don't know, it's good to have all the heads together. So how do we make the games bigger? Like, I've heard people do things in teams and everything like that. So, yeah, that's something that I would love you guys to tell me if you guys do it that way, or how we do make them bigger.
Yeah,
I like the.
Yeah, go ahead. Daniel?
I like the team concept of it. I mean, because thinking originally about your goal on this was maintain the hard aspect of the game where it's manageable, everyone's engaged. The task is not too large to be completed in the short amount of time, so that it's not a long ongoing thing. The bigger you get, the more you scale it up, the more of those challenges that are going to exist. So I think by having teams and it broken down into smaller tasks, I don't know if each team gets a lock, because what happens once they break their lock? Do they break off with another group and start helping them solve their task, and you grow the momentum out through the whole group until you finish? I don't really know how you organize that, or if you just let it run and see how it goes. I kind of like the open structure of how the groups are now, where you basically start the game and let them run with it and figure out all of their individual tasks. I don't know. It's definitely something that everyone brings up every time you bring it up, because they're like, okay, you're doing it with 15. How do I do it with my whole class?
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that we'll need to look at. So I'm glad that the conversations are being had.
Yeah, that's definitely the number one focus, is that design challenge, for sure. Any other comments on that topic? Go ahead.
I think it brings up some interesting things with the facilitation too, because the kids notice who's more likely to take a back seat, and if those 5 extra spots that are a little more than what we needed to run a game successfully. I found that the people I've talked to that have done a larger, like 21 kids, I think, they found that it was a good discussion about why did you take a step back, and did you just feel like you didn't have something to offer, or I saw you jump in here at this moment, so why did you think that was the moment when you could shine there? So it might offer some interesting stuff in terms of like working in a larger group on a task that doesn't require everybody's hands all at once.
I think that's a great point.
I think to build off of that, I actually had to do something similar to a Breakout EDU once for a job interview. And the interview panel, what they did is, I was talking too much. So like we were trapped on a desert island, and they said that I got stung by a bee on my tongue, so I couldn't talk anymore. So then now, since I was participating at a different level than other people, they gave me an additional challenge. So now I had to figure out, how am I going to communicate with people and get ideas across in a nonverbal way. And there were other people that were too hands-on, so they said, they'd be like, oh, James, you can't touch the lock anymore. Like, your hands are frozen. So it's ways to kind of stick with the narrative and maybe enhance the narrative, but also to bring more people in, or maybe not push people to the side, but give everyone a chance to think by highlighting what they can do.
Yeah, I think that's a great solution, is like, making it very clear whether it's tracks or teams or roles, and it's like you open up the first box or you discover the first set of clues, and it's obvious that there may be a roles, and like, all right, I'm going to do this, you do that. The game that I'm designing right now is one that incorporates Google Cardboard, and it's kind of this like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego game, and it's a big Google map with pins everywhere. And the main character is this fictional British spy, and she's very clumsy, and she loses her passports everywhere because she has, a spy has all of her passports. The main character, some of you know her name is Jenny Magera, so she's playing the main character because she travels a lot. So she's getting pictures and stuff from different places, but it's not going to have like a clear, at least at first, path, right? So there's a bunch of resources that need to be dug into. and then having it be like, okay, our team's going to focus on Europe, your team focuses on Africa, this team like focus on Australia, New Zealand, and then let's dig in and try to figure out what information is relevant and not. So it's more kind of like, yes, you're moving around the room, but the core of it centers around this big custom Google map that incorporates cardboard. So you got to go visit these places and find information, and then we're using one of those new Theta cameras, like the Theta S, that takes the 360 videos and pictures. So you can go there with the cardboard and you have to look around, and it's featuring the character and stuff like that. So that one I can imagine, because it's got a lot of computers, and kids are going back and forth to groups and then finding stuff on the wall and in person. But it's tough, and it's a fun challenge though, because I think it's one that if this is going to survive for longer term, we need to solve for sure. Any other comments before we run through the final questions here? Because there's quite a few, and I want to get them all in before our 5:30 stop. Sweet, so let's just go through one at a time. Bailey, you had a question before you jumped in here about scaling down the time frame, dealing with 38-minute classes. That's absolutely a thing that we're working on. So the form itself, when people submit, can actually say how much time the game is. So actually, before we had this call, Patty and I were doing a hangout talking about an event, and she has a couple of games that are shorter that she's been working on. So yeah, I think you'll start to see games to veer off from that 45-minute standard. Kate, you asked the question on the larger classes. We just had that discussion, so it's coming. Mason, who is playing
James,
a little...
Can I just ask a further question? I don't know if mine was clear enough. I'm wondering if it's advisable to take out a clue to make one of those games like the Shakespeare game I really love, but it's just too long for my kids. If I could take out a chunk of clues, and maybe if game designers could say like optional 15-minute clue or something like that.
Yeah, so I think then that would just be... I think it's a good idea. I think, the designers themselves, it would be, I think, too much to ask of them to, like, say, now adapt it for all these different use cases. But I do think if you adapt it, letting us know and we can incorporate it, right? So thinking about Dr. Johnson, for example, Sylvia Duckworth in our community, it's like, oh, I created all of these Google Cardboard clues for that game. I'm like, oh, sweet, I'll go ahead and add it to the site. And it says, like, alternative cardboard incorporation, and there's, like, 5 instructions on how to do that. So thinking of it like a wiki a little bit, in that you can, at least at these early stages, edit it and provide feedback back, and get it. And it maybe even longer term it becomes, a wiki and how the games are on there, and that it is kind of this editable, like commit changes and things like that. Does that better?
Perfect. Yeah, it does. Thank you very much.
Sweet. Mason, the creator of the Mesopotamia game Timekeeper, I believe is what it's called. Anyways, he asked a question: Do you build games? The Game Jam? Is there a limit on the number of directions on the speed lock? I love the idea on the handicap that Ari talked about. So there's a couple things in here. So the Game Jam, I imagine, will feature people playing a game, or at least they could be having some exposure, maybe some intro talks from a guy like Scott or myself or anybody who wants to do that. And then the crux of it is building a game. And so I think ending the second day would be playing or testing people's games, whether it ends in a pitch or playing or whatever. But is that right, Scott? Do you have anything to...
Yeah, I think the structure, part of what we will be providing is the guide and the structure. And so that structure actually would probably be that you should have a game ready to test by, say, 10 a.m. Sunday. And then you have a structure where you partner groups together, you have them test each other's games, you have a chance to revisit it and change it around. But part of what you want to do with the Game Jam is get to a point where you have something you're testing pretty quickly so that you can have some time in there for testing and playing around. But that's part of it. Helps when you run a Game Jam if you have some deadlines throughout, not just see you in 2 days, but that pitch is done by here, first draft of one puzzle done by here, first go done by here, testing, and you're done. That'll be what we'll provide, is that structure. The big goal for me, I'm going to present, is that the goal is to get as many new games as possible going up into the beta space.
Oh, that's so cool. So I think that it's going to be fun. I've done a couple startup weekends where you building apps and stuff like that. So, and then I was on the planning committee for the White House Game Jam, and it was just fun to see people what they created. So I'm really excited about that opportunity. The next one is Daniel. You and I were chatting about your geekiness when it comes to building awesome stuff, and we were chatting about getting a metal box. I just love the idea. I'm trying to convince my dad to build me one, but he's just been lazy. Like, if your dad, if you're watching this, I did call you out. But would love to kind of have, you know, that metal box as like as the option. I don't recommend traveling with it, but it'd be cool to kind of have that mysterious, like, steampunk-ish box. So you want to share any updates on that experience or process that you're thinking about?
Well, it's really just conceptual at this point. The offer's been thrown out to them. They have competitions that they compete in where they build like barbecue pits and smokers and utility trailers. I mean, it's a pretty successful operation that they run there. So this is kind of just an add-on to what they do. But talking with some of the teachers there at the high school, the ag teacher is interested. I mean, they do like livestock and that kind of stuff, but they're interested in maybe looking at building some boxes, and it's, I don't know, it's neat that the teachers are thinking of involving the students and getting that process started.
Oh, that's so cool. Hopefully we don't get in trouble in the state of Texas for having one less meat smoker or barbecue there. So we'll keep it covert for now.
Yeah, that's their fundraiser, so it's for a good cause.
Eddie had a comment on the directional lock. He was saying that he heard that having the same direction twice can be problematic, and I know in both of the games that I've designed, the same direction appears twice. So in Dr. Johnson, you have the same direction twice. I think it's up, down, up, down. And then in Time Warp, it's north, south, east, east, west. So maybe, maybe I'm the reason why some of these locks are breaking. But it does, I mean, mine personally, it works, but I've also seen somebody break it as well. The other thing is he also mentioned tagging the games in the directory. Yeah, we definitely see that as becoming an issue as it grows. So my loose timeline is having a new layout design for the games come January. So I imagine there's going to be a few more entering into the directory, but then trying to figure out what's the next short-term solution, and then a long-term solution would be building our own site from scratch. Like I mentioned before, we're just using a Squarespace site, and then I'm going in and templating it with a WYSIWYG editor for those that know that stuff, but eventually having its own directory, kind of like an app store where you can search by, I'm daydreaming here, but by length of the game, age levels, and the subject area. Heather had a comment here, not a question, but a comment. I love the ability to easily access and connect on Twitter with all the participants on the Blab call. Yeah, we used Blab, that tool, for the last hangout, and loved it. And I just kind of went back to what I know here with the Google Hangout. So yeah, that'll be something to think about for the next one. Like, what's the best tool? So right now we're trying the Google Doc plus the Hangout. I'm enjoying it so far, but it is hard to have people bounce out and bounce in. So something to think about going forward. Sarah, she contacted the manufacturer on the image lock padlock to see if you can set your own combination. I don't know the image lock. Does anybody know what she's talking about there with the image lock? Okay, Sarah, if you want to jump in and add your email address, I'd love to know, or post a link in there and I can bring it up and look at it.
I just Googled it really quickly. It has images rather than numbers around the dial of the lock. So there's like a star shape, a heart shape, a cat shape, a butterfly shape. It's in Kickstarter right now, it looks like.
Oh, but once you have it, you can't reset the combo. She said, yeah, that's definitely not going to work for us. It needs to be something that can be customizable. But that is something to consider. Like, as a Lost fan, I would love a lock that has the kind of the Lost symbols, like when they have to reset the alarm clock every 27 hours or whatever it is, and things like that. So again, just geeking out, but I don't know. And then finally, yes, our call will be archived. I'll post it to the chat. In the Facebook group as well as the blog, and people can access it later. To
go back. Oops, sorry, James. To go back to the comment about the locks having to be reusable, there might be a point where
maybe something like Pony Express, you need to have that directional lock. But then something like for younger kids, maybe having a symbol lock is good. So it might be something worth thinking about where some games have a specific lock, and that lock is only for that game. Because we bought a couple extra locks at our office just so that way we don't have to recode them. Because we're just like, you know what, we don't want to deal with that. So that might be something for people to consider moving forward.
Where it's like, this is the set of locks for Dr. Johnson, this is the set of locks for Time Warp, etc. No, and I get it. You know, it's like, how do you balance the affordability thing? And so having both options, you know, like if there's one way that a school does it, if it's your checking out system, like we strongly encourage you, if you're at a school with one breakout box and you're checking it out, have supplies for each game. Like if you're a single teacher, have your own system for keeping track of your combinations and adjusting them as you go. You know, otherwise it's just, you know, not affordable. So the last things, it's been fun to on the process of designing this kit that we're hoping to get mass manufactured to keep up with demand. But one of the things that I'm thinking is replacing that pencil box, you know, the one with a 3-digit combination, with a cube-shaped box that can have any lock on it, and then shipping a 3-digit lock with it. So it can serve the same function as a 3-digit pencil box, but also offers the versatility of its own box. If you're seeing in the store or in the directory, a lot of the games are calling for an additional box you can lock, and we really haven't found a good, cheap online solution yet. You know, people are posting different things, so we need to have, you know, trying to think like, could we manufacture, you know, a small cubed box with a little breakout mark on it, not the words, and then just any lock you can put onto it. So, and then shipping the 3-digit lock with it. So we're thinking about that. And again, just to summarize, like, thank you all for this fun project. Like, you know, again, we're completely overwhelmed by the response, and I think, you know, we've definitely tapped into something really special here. So, you know, there's kids now going to school, and instead of watching a movie on Halloween, they're going to be playing games that are, you know, solving puzzles aligned to academic stuff. Like, that's super special. Like, kids are not less worksheets and more moving around, but I want to make sure it's very clear that we don't see this as like the solution, right? We never claim, nor should you, that this is the fix for education, right? This is one more tool in an amazing teacher's toolbox that he or she can pull out and say, this is what we're doing today. Like, tomorrow we're going to do a Socratic seminar. You know, the next day we're going to be doing this, you know, design thinking exercise. You know, and trying to just make sure that that's, you know, very much the ethos and the stance that we're taking on all of this stuff is, you know, I've been in education enough, and you guys have as well, is like the last thing we need is to be one more person telling us how we can solve all the problems, rather than that just being like, hey, here's how we're doing this, and it's fun, and, you know, if you're looking for a new way of having kids tackle problems, do it. Because, I mean, I'm sure that there are kids in classrooms where this isn't the best learning experience for them. Like, they may not like really buy into it and have a great time, but for others it might be the very first time in class where they've been engaged in solving a problem too. You know, like when you hand out a worksheet, I'm sure there are kids in every classroom that dread that moment. You know, whereas, you know, this is something that may engage them. So again, thank you everyone for joining the call. Thank you for those watching online, and email me anytime you need to, post it in the Facebook group. Everybody's doing an amazing job of just being responsive, and people like Patty and I think Kim up in Washington State, and many of you are better at responding to people than I am, and you know more about this stuff than I do at this point. So thank you all for your hard work, and thanks, Scott, for joining us. Like, we can't thank you enough for your leadership in the space, and excited to work together on this game jam thing. All right, guys, have a great night, and we'll talk soon.